Hey y'all, Grandma Rose here. I want to teach you something today. Well, I always want to teach you something. You know how I am. That's just the way I am. But I have mentioned this before, and I don't know that I've actually ever shown you how to do this before. Gardening, starting seeds. Everybody's starting seeds. I want to demonstrate a method that you can use in the far north, in the coldest regions. Well, I don't know about the Arctic. I don't know how that would work. But say northern United States, Canada. You can use this method and it works. I know people who start their seeds, or some seeds, on the winter solstice. This is just one of the things that they like to do in late December. And then leave the containers outside all winter, waiting for them to sprout. Now, I've mentioned this before. I know I've mentioned this before. I don't think I've done a video on it, though. So because I haven't done a video on it, I'm going to show you how to do this. Now, it's easy, 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 easy peasy. So just a minute, we'll get on with it. The method that I'm going to show you, seed starting, is different from what other people are going to show you. They're doing well, and I don't feel like I need to reinvent the wheel. But what I'm going to show you is called Winter Sowing, and it's just exactly what it sounds like. Sowing your seeds in the winter, and not sowing your seeds inside in the winter, but sowing your seeds outside in the winter. Now, it doesn't work for things like here in the South where I live, it doesn't work for things like zinnias and marigolds and other tender annuals that would die at the first sign of cold. No, that does not work for things like that. People farther north than I am can start tomatoes this way. And the reason is because it stays cold, and even if you get a warm snap, even if it warms up, it's not going to warm up for long enough for the tomatoes to germinate in the containers. Now, down here where I live in the South, if I planted tomatoes and put them in these containers like I'm going to show you, it's warm enough during the day and for long enough periods that the tomatoes would germinate, and then we would have another freeze, and then they would die in the containers. No. This is good for areas where it stays cold. It's not going to thaw enough inside these containers for tender plants like tomatoes to be killed by the freeze that's coming. What we're making are little mini greenhouses, tiny little greenhouses, individual greenhouses, little individual greenhouses for each plant that you're growing. I wish I had a greenhouse. If I had a greenhouse, I wouldn't need to do this. But I don't have a greenhouse. So how else am I going to start these things? Anything that you would grow in a spring garden or fall garden or perennials. It's perfect for perennials. This is perfect for those perennials that need to be have cold stratification. Anything that it says, well, you need to refrigerate it for X number of days or whatever, it needs to have temperatures below such and such for a certain number of days before you can plant it, before it'll germinate. Something that needs cold stratification. An example of that is the hyssop that I bought. Didn't realize that, and I should have bought that in the fall. I don't know that I have enough cool days in the 40s now for it to break its dormancy. We'll see. See if I have that in the seed pack. I don't have the seed pack here. But hyssop, yeah. Hyssop is an example of a plant that needs cold stratification. Echinacea is beautiful. Echinacea works beautifully like this. If you have a flower garden, columbine. Have you ever tried to grow columbine? I used to have a flower garden rather than a vegetable garden. And I had never had any luck trying to grow columbine, but as soon as I started winter sowing and planted the columbine seeds in the wintertime and let them overwinter in the containers outside, never had a problem whatsoever with my columbine germinating, and I had beautiful columbines growing in my shady garden. So this is a good example of something that you would grow. Echinacea is a good example. Yarrow is something that grows well. The perennial things like marshmallow. What are some other things? Think about perennial herbs. Any of the perennial herbs. Anything that is a perennial, period. Anything that would seed itself, self-seed in the fall. The seeds are going to stay in the ground over the winter and then come up in the spring and then live on from year to year to year. Any of those will grow beautifully with this method. So let's go on and show what I'm doing. What I'm going to plant today. What I'm going to plant today are poppies, breadseed poppy. What is it? Papaver. How do you pronounce papaver? Papaver. Poppies. Papaver. Somniferum. Somniferum. These are the opium poppies. You'll find them in your catalogs as breadseed poppies because nobody wants the police to come after them for growing poppies in their garden. This is the same poppies that opium is derived from. But we're not using them for opium, we're using them for their seeds. So for me, these poppies in my garden are going to be an herb. I'm going to collect the seeds from the poppies and I'll use them in baking later on. So let's get the poppies going. Poppies should have actually been, poppies are an example of something that you could plant in the fall. Probably should have been planted at direct sown in the fall. Let overwinter, and then in the earliest spring they'll start coming up. But I didn't do that. I didn't get my seeds until just a couple of days ago. So I need to get these going right now to get these plants, to get these to germinate and come up so I can get them out in the garden as soon as possible so there'll be a chance that they will actually grow and flower. If I don't get them out in the garden early enough, they're not going to grow and they're not going to flower, and I will have wasted my money on the seeds. And I love poppies. They're just so beautiful. And the poppies that I'm growing are called Jimmy's Flag Mix, as in Jimi Hendrix, Purple Haze. This seed company has a purple poppy with a red center that they call Jimmy's Flag. Let me show you these. I bought these seeds from, it's called Wild Garden Seed. You see the name on it. Jimmy's Flag Mix. So these aren't just the purple ones, these aren't just the red ones. These are a mix of colors, and that's exactly what I wanted. So there we go. And that's where I got these. Now I've seen a lot of poppies in other catalogs. They're all one color, and I didn't want to buy several different packages to get my multicolor garden, so I bought this one. These are so easy to grow. I'll show you how to do this. So there's my seeds. So what I have, I've already got this started. This was a jug. I think I bought iced tea or something in it, or tea. You see this? And I've cut it off. You see right here, at this point right here, is where it starts to bend in so you can get in here for the handle. And I've cut it all the way around it, leaving it together at this point so it bends. You see that? Okay, so let's do that. Just like that. Now I have damp soil in here. Inside that. Now there's holes in the bottom of it, drainage holes. And instead of putting the drainage holes underneath, I didn't put them underneath, I put them on the sides. Way down at the base. Let me see. I'll lift this up so you can see. I'll show you. I've already got the holes in here. So I'm reusing this container from last year. So the holes are actually, see where my finger is? Right there. And there's another one right in here. So all around the outside of it. but not underneath it, but right up on the edge. So where the water will puddle underneath, it's going to drain, then it will not be sitting on the holes to clog up the holes. And that's important. For me, these are tiny seeds. They probably have, I'm hoping they have them in another little envelope, and they do. Got a little glassine envelope in here because poppy seeds are tiny. If you bake, and you've ever made poppy seed muffins or something like that, you know how tiny poppy seeds are. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take these, I'm going to pour some out of my hand. I don't think I want to plant the entire envelope, so I'm going to leave some. And that's about half of it. See how many I've got in my hand. Tiny little things. And I'm just going to take these like this, just a pinch of them, and just sprinkle them. I don't want to plant these so densely that I can't get out the plants. That's all there is to it. Poppy seeds. Then I'm going to tamp this down. Not hard. I'm just barely pressing down, just so I know that the seeds are making contact with the soil. And I usually like to use the back side of a couple of fingers. And I'm just barely pressing the soil down. Just to even it up, and so all these little seeds are making contact with the soil. Now, it already has the hinge, so it'll close. Now the thing is we don't want that right there, the gap. We want it to be closed. But then you leave the top of it open. See, the top of it is open. Take the top of it, and that makes a chimney. That's the ventilation up there at the top. You can do the same thing with milk jugs, the clear ones, the kind that you get at Walmart. You know, that have the translucent plastic and not the opaque white ones that I get at my grocery. 2-liter Coke bottles, a vinegar bottle, anything that's clear or translucent, light can go through, works beautifully, like this. So let me show you what I'm going to do. So let's make a label. I'm going to put this down here just as a pad, and you'll see why in just a second. That. Now I'm going to use this aluminum HVAC tape. Let's see. Tear it about there. It tears. You don't even have to cut it. That's going to be my label, and it's also going to close the container at the same time. Right there. Now I'm going to take a ballpoint pen. You can use anything. I have here's a skewer. I've got a skewer right here that I've used for other things. But I'm going to use the ballpoint pen, and I'm just going to, the reason this pad is on here, you'll see in just a second. I'm going to write poppies. Poppies. See, you can see that on there? It's embossed in that aluminum. So we've got the label. Here's the label. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to move this, take this right here. So we've got this aluminum HVAC tape. I'm just going to peel off the back. All I'm going to do at this point then is put that jug back together, stick that on there, right across that seam, and stick it down. And now we've closed the container and have a label on it at the same time. This is going to go outside. I'm going to put this out in my patio, or in my little patio area. And I'm going to let it grow. It'll grow outside. It needs the cool air. It needs the cool temperatures in order for it to germinate when it's supposed to germinate, which probably it should have already done. And hopefully I'll be able to get this out in my garden early enough for it to bloom this early spring when the poppies do bloom. The plants are going to have to get big enough to bloom in spring, which is why a lot of people plant them. Most people plant these outside in the fall.